and Jane.
And this is our January thematic video.
We're a little late this month, so sorry about that. It'll be a little last minute, but we're finally getting it done. And we just wanted to get it up before the end of the month. And we have 3 great themes for you today.
Yeah, we do. So the first theme is New Year's. It is New Year's. We've started 2025. Yay! It's so great.
It's mixed. So one thing we do at New Year's, right, is we make these resolutions and then we try to carry out those resolutions. It's kind of like doing a programming game.
Yes.
Where you program your move and then you try to carry out the move during the round.
Exactly. See what we did there?
So our first game on the list is actually a war game, and this is more popular, I think, with war games, this particular mechanism.
Yeah.
But this is Game of Thrones, which is a fantastic war game.
I have not played it, so I'm going to let you talk all about this one.
In Game of Thrones, you program. You choose your actions to begin turn. You assign them to different units that you have out in the field, and then you flip them over as you come around to the round. But then whoever goes first depends on initiative or whatever, and so you don't know. Like, for example, you might go into a defensive pose expecting someone to attack you, but they might or they might not. You might go into attack expecting them to not go in defense, but they go in defense. So things can go good, things can go bad. Very hard to predict game because you don't know what the opponents are going to do. But very interesting, and I think it plays really well.
Yeah, and if you like Game of Thrones, from what I understand, it's very thematic, so it would be a great choice. So our second game, I do know very intimately, and that's Gloomhaven or Frosthaven. And so at the beginning of your turn in Gloomhaven, everybody around the table picks their 2 action cards, and they have your initiative on it. You can't talk about what exactly you're going to do. You can't say, well, you go first. What number are you picking? You might say, well, I need to go early. If I do go early, I can do some good things. So you can kind of go that way, but you don't know. And you don't know what initiative the baddies are going to have either. So your whole plan could go awry. But I think that action mechanism is so interesting. And I know there was a lot of talk when Gloomhaven first came out about the way combat was resolved with the flipping cards, but also with that those cards with the top power and the bottom power, and it just makes it really interesting. A lot of things you can do, and depending on what your playmates, your teammates put out, you could kind of switch the order of your cards and do the bottom where you're going to do top.
You're programming your action, and then you're doing your best to carry it out in a way that makes sense.
Yeah.
Based on what other people end up doing. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that works really well.
Yeah.
Right. The third game on our list is a bit of a change of pace, and that is a game about art, and that is Fresco. We actually have not played Fresco in a long time, but it is a programming game, and we thought it would be good to include on the list.
Yeah, and it's so pretty. You're making basically a mosaic on your board, and it's such a unique theme. There are more games. I think Fresco's pretty old. It's probably close to 8 or 10 years old now. And there's certainly been more games with different themes than sort of the traditional war or fantasy theme since Fresco came out, but it was one of those games that was really unique in theme, and that makes it interesting along with the programming mechanism. And so it's actually a nice change of pace from the rest of the games on this list, because everything is kind of heavy battle.
Yeah, and then after the game of Fresco, you can get back into the battle with one of our favorite war games, and that is Wallenstein. We love the Cube Tower.
Yeah, I love the Cube Tower.
We must confess. But a big part of this game is programming your actions for the round. And then carrying them out to the best of your ability in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, so. And one of the things I love about Wallenstein, and it actually doesn't have anything to do with its programming per se, but the fact that you are putting peasants into the Cube Tower as well. And so basically the more fighting there is in a given area, the more peasants are going to be upset, and eventually they're going to revolt. And I love that. I love that mechanism, and it makes Wallenstein really, I think, a unique war game and a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, so that is our first theme, which is New Year's resolutions. Our next theme that we have for January, after this one came from Jimmy, which is, it's after Christmas or after the holidays, depending on what holidays you celebrate. And so now everyone's sort of packing up their holiday stuff and putting them into storage. So organization and storage is a big winter thing. So we thought we'd start this out with a game which has an interesting storage mechanism, and that's beer and bread.
Yep.
In beer and bread, you have a limited storage situation. You could store 9 things. And there are ways to upgrade and expand that, but you can store anything, but only 9.
Yeah, and I think that's really a very interesting part of the game, is kind of figuring out, like, when you play a card, you might get a whole lot of one resource and one of something else because you really need that one. What do? Do you store all of that? And you're literally putting it into a shed on your board. So it's perfect for the theme of storage.
Yep. Next up, we have a game, you're getting organized. My Shelfie. Phil Walker Harding. Really good game about organizing your shelves.
Yeah, and I mean,
is what we're all board gamers are doing in January.
Exactly. Oh my God, where are we going to put all these new games? Can we move that and fit it in? Yeah, and ostensibly this could be a game about decorating, but it's also a game about, like, figuring out how to get everything on the shelves in the best way. And I know, actually that's something we did this year with our Christmas decorations, is we just moved last year and we're trying to consolidate our Christmas decorations and organize them so they fit on the shelf. And so, my Shelfie.
Yep. And then another game with storage, and this storage itself isn't that interesting, but it can interact in gameplay, and that is Potion Explosion, where you have a storage area where you can put your extra ingredients, but then sometimes they can be stolen, or you can use them as any color once they're on there. You choose potions based on what you have, potentially. So I think that interplay is very interesting.
Yeah, and sometimes this happens to me a lot, where I will get more than I need of something, and so they'll go into storage, but I don't know what the next potion I'm going to get to complete. So I don't know if I really need all those blue, but I don't necessarily want to throw them away because they might be really useful. So I think that's a sort of clever mechanism in that game.
Yep. And next up, a game that has a great storage options is Wingspan, where you can cache your resources on different birds. Wormspan uses a similar mechanism.
You can tuck cards.
You can tuck cards, so you do different things where you're storing resources.
Well, certainly, if you're caching it, it's like a squirrel burying its nuts for winter. You're hoarding your seeds so you can eat when the season comes.
Exactly. Really, and that's a really thematic one. I really like that one.
Yeah, and our final game on this list is from Uwe Rosenberg, and that is Glass Road. And what's really interesting about this is that most games where you have resources and you're, like, collecting resources in order to do something, you're just throwing them in a pile, right? Maybe you've got an organizer, maybe you're just piling them on your board. But in Glass Road, like a couple of Uwe's games, the resources are stored on a wheel, and as the wheel turns, it changes the amount of each resource that you have. So it's kind of to mimic that. If you have sand and water, you could make glass, and so as you use the glass, you increase the if you use the sand and water, you increase the glass. And so it's just a really, really interesting way of utilizing that idea of, like, storing your resources as well as transforming them into something else and making it an active part of gameplay instead of just piling them on your board.
Yep. Really interesting. So that is organization and storage.
Yeah. And our final theme is Snow Day. So I don't know about you all, but we had a very cold, very snowy January. We've had snow on the ground
all month.
Yeah, all month. At record low temperatures, our pipes froze. Well, what do you do when it snows? If you're lucky, you stay inside and play board games. So we thought, how much fun would it be when you're snowed in to play snow. So I lost my words there. Games that feature snow.
Now, maybe you want to break out between games and go out and build a snowman, but you could save yourself the trouble and play Best Snowman Wins. And this is a roll and write from Teetotum Games, I believe. And it's basically you're filling in parts of a snowman and adding like a nose and scarf and all that stuff, and trying to get the most points. Really fun little roll and write.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's interesting about this is there's also a grid of numbers that you work through, sort of like a maze, how you're filling in the numbers as you go. Mm-hmm. And that is how you get the decorations for your snowman, like your broom arms or your coal nose. And it's just a whole other, sort of level of gameplay. And it's really fun.
Yep.
Yeah. So next on our list is just such a thematic game when you think about snow, and that is Nouveau France. And in Nouveau France, you are building a fort in like Quebec, right? New France.
I think so, but yeah.
And it's snowy. It's real snowy. And so as the game goes on, the snow drifts build up around your
you have actual
fort.
3D snow drifts. So you build the foundations of these buildings, which are different colored blocks, which then score based on their colors and whatever. And then you put up these snowbanks and they block what you see. So you no longer score what is blocked from the snowbanks. And so you're adding snowbanks. It's sort of an abstract-y game with a very heavy snow theme.
It's so pretty and really, really thematic. So, and we had a lot of fun with this one.
We really enjoyed it. Another really snowy winter game, and a bit icy too, is Expedition Northwest Passage. That passage is going to freeze over, and you're going to get off your boat and skedaddle.
Get on your sled.
Get in your sled. So this just represents, obviously, a very snowy scenario. And we thought it would be perfect for a snow day type game. And
I think one of the things that's really cool about this is that as the rounds go, the round marker moves around the board, and it goes from, summer when it's sunny to winter when it's freezing. And as it does that, the whole board changes and what you're allowed to do changes. So once it freezes, as Jane said, you can't sail your ships anymore. You have to abandon your ship and get in your sleds to continue on your way. And then you got to get back to your ship before it melts, and so you can get your ship back to port. So really interesting game and highly thematic. The mechanisms play well with the theme.
Yep. Next up, we have a monster of a game, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Endless Winter. And Endless Winter is, I don't know if the winter theme comes through enough for me, but it's definitely very winter themed. You got mammoths, you got all kinds, you got Ice Age stuff going on. This is a really heavy Euro, really.
Yeah.
Well, I think the base game is more midweight, but we tend to add in all the expansions.
Yeah. Can we make this really unwieldy? Absolutely. Then we're going to.
We do that.
Yeah.
So what a great game, though. Endless Winter is fantastic. I really can't recommend it enough if you like your Euros.
Yeah, absolutely. And then finally, a little bit later, we're gonna ease out of the day with Carcassonne, the winter edition. And it's really just mostly a change in artwork. I think there might be, I can't remember which mechanism the winter brings in versus the other ones, but it's basically just Carcassonne with snow.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, but I love Carcassonne. Who doesn't love Carcassonne? Let's lay some tiles.
Fantastic game, very thematic and tactile.
This was my first, you gave me this. This was my first Carcassonne that I owned. So it's also one of my favorites for that reason.
As it should be.
All right, well, that is our January theme video. Hopefully we'll get our February up a little bit quicker.
What ideas do you have for February?
Yeah, let us know. Hey, Jimmy.
No pressure.
Pressure. Jimmy is always full of great ideas. So the storage idea came from Jimmy. So thank you. All right. Well, remember,
every day of the game
is a holiday.
Bye, everyone.